Yo, what is going on, guys? J.Yumeko here, and today we're back with some more Root Double Before Crime After Days Extended Edition. So, last time we left off, not really anything happened. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, like, we had the kind of usual of day starts, you know, slice of life stuff, day ends, Yudi goes crazy, and yada yada yada. So, the main thing that we were talking about last episode was, I guess, kind of about Solyu. That was kind of what last episode revolved around. Getting to know her. There's a couple of interesting things said regarding her. Some hints as to why she might be so, well, why she was so immediately unapologetically hostile to Watase and Kazumi. Which, thank you for pointing out her name, the vice captain. So obviously we know that she was sent here by oh god, what's his name? Oh good lord. The fucking guy's mom. Here, watch this. If we go here where we left off. I gotta forget these guys' names so quickly. Natsuhiko, thank you. So Natsuhiko's mom sent Sally to our home to quote unquote protect us. I was kind of theorizing that Sally was maybe potentially a part of this, of whatever kind of experimentation they were doing down here. It's very clear they were doing some kind of experimentation that was under wraps and secret, and it was involving, I guess, young girls, or kids. And the only reason I say that is because we found the other young girl who was shot dead against the elevator when we were playing as Watase, right? So that's the only reason I say that. And her backstory doesn't really make too much sense, and the fact that she's so emotional doesn't make too much sense, and then her, circumstances being here doesn't make sense. Her lack of knowledge about all this shit in the outside world doesn't, you get my point. But yeah, so we were kind of talking about her and what she was up to, and whether or not we should even trust her. And then just kind of the concept of narrator legitimacy, right? Like, how much can we actually trust Watase? How much can we actually trust Natsuhiko? How can we trust what they are seeing, what they are saying, what they're experiencing? So there was that, and because there was a line mentioned where, at the beginning of that episode, go watch it, by the way. But yeah, at the beginning of that episode, they were talking about basically perception and how, you have this blind spot in your vision, and then, so you're not actually seeing what's really there. So that was kind of the big theme of last episode. A couple of things before we start. I do have a new PC. It is significantly more powerful than my old one, which of course I need. I need that power for these really graphically demanding visual novels. But yeah, so if there are any odds or ends with the recording, I apologize about that, and I'm honestly hoping that it's recording right now because I had to basically reconfigure OBS. I had to obviously transfer all my files, yada yada yada, and then not only that, but this is I'm no longer using NVIDIA GeForce, I'm not using that anymore. This is all AMD stuff now, so it's it's got encoders and shit like that. So I'm hoping that I set all that up right. I'm not good with technology, so there is that. Let's see, is there anything else to say? No. If there is some kind of random cut in this, which you will know, it's because my PC just fucking shut off. So again, call me stupid because I'm not technologically inclined, but this piece, earlier today it supposedly had a network connection outage, which I'm not surprised about. Where I live, we have fucking horrific internet providers. So I'm, it's okay, I'm not surprised. Internet went out probably. It disconnected, yada, yada, yada. I'm thinking that the shutting off is really just when you leave it inactive, it automatically just shuts itself off. Maybe, that's a possibility. I'll have to look into that. So hopefully it doesn't cut off. I mean, I haven't had any problems with it. And it's weird because I left it to install games overnight And it was fine. Like, it stayed on all night, but then all of a sudden I leave it for like, 20 minutes and it shuts off. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But without further ado, let's jump right on into it. Natsuhiko came to his senses. Where am I? Right before his eyes were 2 rescue squad members collapsed on the floor, as well as Salyu, the one who put them there. Natsuhiko, Mashiro, and Yuri looked at the situation in awestruck surprise. Calm down. This is no time to space out. Why would Salyu kick down some rescue squad members? Natsuhiko was horribly confused, but the answer to his question lied in what he had just been seeing. No, hold on. Salyu's working to protect us. I should be able to trust her. In that case, the fact that Salyu kicked these guys down means... Oh? Whoa! Okay, we're obviously gonna see... I imagine that's probably gonna be this next little bit we're about to play through. But I already am cooking up some theories and stuff, okay? Interesting. Like I said, maybe we can't trust everybody, right? Who's to say that whatever group, entity, person, thing is behind this didn't infiltrate the rescue squad? Electricity ran through Natsuhiko's spine. He then realized exactly who these people were. Again, with the incredibly unfitting music. I mean, I've said it before. This soundtrack, or not the soundtrack, but this specific song does not fit anywhere in the story. There's not been a single moment where it's fit, where it has fit or could fit, and specifically the moments that they have used it's in the worst. It's like this is a super tense moment. We just came to the realization that these guys are dudes who tried to kill us earlier, and it's like, wait, these aren't actually rescue squad members. And then it's this fucking like kind of hype, like fucking almost inspirational fucking soundtrack that's playing. Anyways, let me start going on about that. The moment Natsuhiko said that, one of the collapsed men glared at him. And with that, the man lunged towards the kids. But then Salyu stepped forward ever so slightly, grabbed the man by the arm, and hurled him to the ground. The man's shoulder rolled back to safety on his feet and lunged at Salyu once more. As she readied to counter him, Salyu shouted, Okay, so I guess it is pretty safe to say that Salyu is good. That's awesome. Yeah, with all due respect, Natsuhiko, you're probably about as useful as a fucking brittle twig. Hesitation wormed its way into Natsuhiko's mind, but Mashiro grabbed him by the arm and said, Mashiro and Yuri were right. Natsuhiko shouted to shake off his frustration. Well, we know that this entire fucking group gets split up. We know Mashiro gets fucking shot somewhere. Yuri disappears into thin air. And then he gets really fucked up, so... Yeah. And then he turned back and ran off with Mashiro and Yuri. In accordance with Mashiro's proposal, they headed through the passageway. As they ran, Natsuhiko pondered to himself. In any case, why did I remember the past again? Just a moment ago, he was recalling a detailed account of the events of September 12th. Why does this keep happening? There was something clearly strange about it. Was he really just recalling his memories? Suddenly, he remembered the words Sayu had said that day.
脳はしばしば自分の都合のいいように認識の辻褄を合わせる。場合によっては現実すらもねじ曲げかねない。
Natsuhiko was taken aback as he remembered those words. Don't tell me that what I saw was another type of hallucination. Just a few days ago, Natsuhiko was enjoying peaceful days with those around him. But now they were running for their lives. It was no exaggeration to say Natsuhiko regretted that fact. He probably wanted to return to those peaceful days. So perhaps he'd run away into his memories as a means of escaping from reality. Would my brain just automatically do that on its own? But even if that were the case, it wouldn't change reality at all. Natsuhiko glanced at his watch. It was stopped on 9/16 at 6:19, the time it broke due to the impact of an explosion. Every time his recollections would end, he'd catch sight of his watch, as if it were trying to pull him back to reality. Isn't my brain commanding me to face reality? Is the command to face reality really conflicting with the instinct to run away from it? The answer would be obvious if that were the case. He had to face reality or they would almost surely die. No, I get the feeling that wouldn't be the end of it. Ever since I started recalling these memories, they always end in... As Natsuhiko pondered, he glanced at Yuri, but he snapped out of it when Mashiro spoke up. Oh, let me also bring this up. I'm so sorry to interject again. I had one of you guys tell me, or at least present to me, this question regarding my theory that Yudi's actually dead. If Yudi's dead, then how do you explain her interacting with everybody? I lightly kind of, I think I did. I kind of lightly touched on this in some of the other times I rambled on about it. But here is my argument. And I will admit, it's not very strong, but it's there. My argument is that I think this is getting really out there, but I think Natsuhiko is projecting that as well. So, for example, when Yuri sits down at the table to eat every day, it's like, hey, you see that she sits at the table, the table's set, she sits down, grabs food, eats the food, right? Sure, but who is to say that he isn't projecting the food as well? I mean, it's right there in front of him. It sure as hell would be easy to do so. Besides, if he has the ability to project Yuri into other people's vision or into other people's reality, even as if we're going to introduce that concept, then it wouldn't be so hard to say that he's also doing it with the food as well. That he's doing it, and keep in mind, my whole theory, one of the subjects of my theory is that he's doing this unconsciously. He doesn't know that he's doing this. This is just as much a traumatic response from him, right, as it is a purposeful one, right? So I think even when he starts gaining control over his telepathy, which maybe he will, which I'm assuming that's going to happen, right? He's going, I eventually get control of my telepathy. Even as he starts getting control of his telepathy, he's still doing that unconsciously. He's still projecting Yuri. The thing is, Yuri is as much a part of his reality and his world, and as much of a part of real life, that of course she's going to be there. Of course, when she sits down at the dinner table, she's going to grab food and eat it. Of course, even when he's not there, she's still existing. The memory of her is still existent, active, wandering. So it is kind of more accurate to say that she is almost like a ghost, a phantom, if you want to say a zombie even, right? And I get it. Like, it sounds so crazy and it sounds so bad and founded, which it is. But kind of counter argument to that. Think about it that she's the one she always is the one saying something to him, before he goes into these flashbacks and or like hallucinations. And then she's the one that speaks to him right before he comes out of it. I mean, assuming that's a hallucination, right? Because it seems like he is, to some extent, being mentally transported back to those days before we get here. Before September 16th, right? So that tells me that Yuri is so encoded into his mind, into his brain, into his memories, that she's the one. You could even argue she's almost like the one signaling that that these flashbacks or transportations are going to start and that they're going to end. So she is that significant to him. She's that significant to the story that I feel like it's not that much of a stretch to say, if my theory is correct, he could totally just be diluting reality for everybody else just as much as for himself. So it's like, now I get that there are a couple counters to that, right? I mean, I don't well, this is going to be me calling on help for you guys. When was there ever really a time that Yuri's directly like interacted with anybody? Like, I know like the most significant moments with her that I can recall is when she almost got crushed by the rubble and or did get crushed, depending on the ending you got there. And then the moment that she like ran away and basically scared us off. Like when Watase chased after her and then she like fucking did her little crazy like mind shit and then he freaked out and ran off, right? And that was after seeing her supposedly dead, crushed beneath rubble. So it's just these little things to me. I've been rambling about this for too long, but it's just those little things to me that something's not quite right with her. Something, and then of course when you have this telepathy thing, for me, I like that tells me to put two and two together and say, hey, look, here's what's going on. And what's going on is that Yuri's dead, is some kind of projection or ghost now. And all of this shit that's going on is really a byproduct of Natsuhiko. And when I say all this shit, I mean like, Watase's delusions and all that stuff. So that's what I'm saying. So yeah, let me get back to the story. And with that, Natsuhiko entered the stairwell. The stairs were safe, but as soon as he started to go up those stairs, he heard a sound from up above. When he looked up, he saw someone in a protection suit. Crap, if he gets to sell you. Natsuhiko suddenly raised his voice. The figure hesitated for a second before rushing towards the kids. The kids turned around and rushed down the stairs. They ran down all the way to the second basement floor and flew out of the stairwell. Damn it, how many of them are there? The staircase leading to the surface was already enemy territory. They felt a presence chasing after them. Also, God, here's another interjection. Or what, like fucking 10 minutes into the thing? Alright, well, maybe not 10. Anyways, another thing, I guess we'll find this out. My question is Salyu able to just detect when there are bad people? Or is she like, oh hey, I know that these guys have infiltrated the rescue squads, therefore all rescue squad members are bad, right? So it's that kind of thing, because she was hostile against Watase. Yeah, no, she was hostile against Watase, and then we know for a fact that she did end up kind of going like Rambo and just killed all of us, like every single fucking one of us. So I'm still not 100% clear if that ending was just her doing that because it's like, hey, you know, initiative, protect Natsuhiko activated, kill everybody else. You know, kill everybody that are rescue squad members or associated with them. Or if that was her going crazy like we saw happen to Jun and Utsui or whatever the fuck, the old guy's name. Anyways.
第三エリア方面に行こう。そこから逃げられるはずだ。でも、
第三エリアってどっち？私、道わかるよ。
Natsuhiko and Mashiro followed Yuri towards Area 3. They slipped through the passageway. And headed toward the Area 3 inner ring emergency staircase. But it didn't look like they could escape from there either. The segment connecting the first and second basement levels was okay, but the segment leading up from there to the surface level had been blown up.
くそ、ここもか。
夏彦、あっちの階段まだ見てないよ。
ああ。
They started running again after Mashiro shouted. And thus they headed to the last staircase in Area 3. Please be safe. Natsuhiko prayed as they opened the door to the stairwell. The staircase was safe. Nothing was broken at all from the bottom of the second basement level all the way to the surface. Right as Mashiro rejoiced... Yep, there it is. A blast of flame surged up before their very eyes.
二人とも危ない。
Natsuhiko covered the girls as they hid in the corner of the stairwell. They felt a wave of heat blazing over their heads.
ユーリ、マシロ、無事か？
The girls answered him in trembling voices.
大丈夫だけど。階段が。
As he turned to look, Natsuhiko saw the wreckage of the staircase following the explosion. Now they couldn't even go up to the first basement level from here. And then a broadcast rang out for the nth time that day.
エリアまでの階段もほぼ全て崩壊しました。しかしまだ第5、第6エリアが残っています。施設内の職員は早急に避難してください。
第5エリアだって。
Natsuhiko groaned. They'd left Salyu in Area 2. Running to Area 5 would put quite a distance between them.
どうする？第5エリア方面に行く。
いや、だったらいっそ。
Before Natsuhiko could finish, Yuri raised her voice.
ダメ！ヒコリン！やるべきことを思い出して！ヒコリンの役目は何？先にすることがあるでしょ？
Unlike her usual self, Yuri was dead serious.
それは。
あの日にも言ったはずだよ。ヒコリンが気にかけるべき人は。
Yuri's words cut out at that moment. In the sudden silence, the sole sound of a ticking watch rang out. Back on that day, huh? On that day when things got awkward between us all. Natsuhiko already knew exactly what time and date his watch would display. As he looked at his watch, it read 9:13 at 6:49. Here we go. Yippee!
Say.
Natsuhiko started that morning with an impact to the throat.
なんだ。
Natsuhiko jerked up and looked around. And that's when he noticed Salyu was standing beside his bed.
もしかして今のはサリュがやったのか？
そう。夏彦の喉に手刀を入れて起こした。真白が言っていた。夏彦はこうしないと起きないって。
Oh, Mashiro, doing silly things as always.
サリュ、残念ながらそれはデタラメだ。今度からは普通に起こしてくれ。
わかった。 夏彦がそう言うならそう
I
する
do say so, Salia.
助かるよ。それじゃあ着替えるから先にリビングに行っててくれ。
了解。
Salia left Natsuhiko's room. As he watched her leave, Natsuhiko pondered to himself. I get the feeling Salia showed up in my dream, but I guess it was just my imagination. The dream about a girl he just met made it seem like he was obsessed with her. Me? Obsessed with a little girl like that? Impossible. Natsuhiko quickly changed and left his room, somewhat embarrassed. Bro's obsessing over... How old is Salia? I forget if she's supposed to be like a kid genius or if she's just small. Whatever.
おはようみんな。
Natsuhiko greeted everyone as he entered the living room. Salia, Yuri, and Mashida were all gathered at the dining room table already.
ひかりおはよ
遅いよ夏彦。もう朝食できてるよ。
悪い悪い。ところでメニューは何だい？
今日はぐっと渋く朝粥です。
Rice
昨日みんな
gruel.
たくさん食べて胃が重いだろうからね。
お、気が利くな。
う。夏彦、早く食卓に着く。
わかってるって
What should I eat for dinner tonight? I don't know. Natsuhiko smiled wryly as he got to the dining table. He nonchalantly looked out the window. He saw a sunny sky. Another refreshing morning today. The confusion he felt the previous morning had completely dissipated today. Salia becoming a member of the household had certainly been an unwelcome change for Natsuhiko. But even when things change, you simply have to get used to them. You simply have to get used to them for them to become just another part of the ordinary. One day he'd get used to the change of a new member in the household. At least he had a vague feeling that he would. A beautiful blue sky, a delicious breakfast inside. What a great morning. I get the feeling something wonderful is going to happen today too. Yeah, sure. And with that thought in mind, Natsuhiko started on his breakfast. But once breakfast was over and they headed to school, Natsuhiko came to the sudden realization that it was anything but a good morning. First thing today was parapsychology class, a full 2-hour block to boot. Natsuhiko grumbled as they headed to the BC room.
BC 関係の授業多すぎないか？
私もそう思う。
当然じゃん。そういう学校なんだし。
Mashida was calm because she enjoyed BC.
それにしても面倒。なぜ BC の授業では専門の教室に移動しなければならないの？
ああ、他の教室で授業をしている生徒に迷惑がかからないようにだよ。BC ルームの壁には BC 絶縁体っていう BC を遮る特殊な建材が使われているんだ。仕組みはよくわかんないけどテレパシーとかを吸収する建材らしい。ま、音楽室みたいなもんさ。そうでもしなきゃうるさくてまともに授業できないだろ。
つまり BC ルームでは無差別テレパシーだろうとなんだろうと思い切りぶっ放せるってわけだよ。サリュは今日実習初めてだよね。思いっきりやっちゃっていいからね。
いつもながらなんでお前はそうテンション高いんだ。
Natsuhiko entered the BC room as he shook his head in exasperation.
はい、皆さん、楽しい BC のお時間ですよ。
Anna cheerfully addressed her students as soon as she began class.
今日はせっかく2時間もあるので、まず BC の原理について
2 hours,
詳しくレクチャーしようと思います。そしてその前に BC において取り扱われる情報というものが何なのか。これはテレパシーとかの使用には直接関係ないけど BC の本質に触れる重要な概念でもあるの。ちょっと難しいけどよく聞いて覚えてね。
Anna worked on her computer as she spoke, upon which words began to appear on the screen.
情報とは何か。それについて説明するためにはまずこの熱力学の第二法則について知ってもらわなければなりません。
The second law of thermodynamics.
これは宇宙に存在する絶対の法則。あらゆるエネルギーは常に触れ合えば入り混じり均一化していくということよ。
Excuse me. Anna used the PC to bring a figure to life on the screen. Blue dots and red dots floated about in a partitioned box.
これは仕切りのついた箱の中にそれぞれ摂氏100度の熱湯と 2度の冷水を入れたものをモデル化したものです。スクリーン上で動いているドットは自然界に存在する分子、赤いドットは熱い分子、青いドットは冷たい分子よ。さて、この熱量というエネルギーも当然触れ合えば入り混じります。例えば1リットルの熱湯に1リットルの水を放り込んだら2リットルのぬるま湯ができるでしょ。
Excuse me again. Jesus Christ. And with that, Anna removed the divider that partitioned the box.
熱湯と冷水が入り混じり、熱い分子と冷たい分子が触れ合うとやがて均一化してぬるま湯になるってわけだけど、その逆はありえないの。ぬるま湯が勝手に冷水と熱湯に分かれたりはしないわよね。これが熱力学の第二法則というものよ。
The students nodded in agreement. That was a sensible conclusion to make and would likely be experimentally demonstratable.
でも今から160年ほど昔のこと、ジェームズ・マクスウェルという物理学者がある日ふと考えました。もしこの分子の動きを観察することができたら、観察で得た情報によって分子を操ることができたら、第二法則は破れてしまうのではないか。そう考えた彼は一種の思考実験として分子を観察できる架空の生物を創造しました。その生物の名はマクスウェルの悪魔。マクスウェルの悪魔は分子を観察してこんなことをしてしまいます。
ありゃりゃ。
Soon enough, Mashiro spoke out as she watched the screen.
お湯と水が分かれていく。
そう、分子を観察できるということはこんな無茶ができるってことなのよ。これは物理学的に見ると情報を操作したということになるの。
情報ですか？
分子が今どこにあるか、どういう状態かというのは一種の情報でしょ。悪魔はその情報を操作するだけでエネルギーをも操作してしまうの。
なるほど。
さらに言えばこの悪魔はお湯の中から熱い分子だけを取り出してお湯から火を作り出すことだって可能にしてしまう。これってパッと聞いただけでも変な感じがしない？情報からエネルギーが生み出されるなんて無から有を生み出してるみたいじゃない？
はい、明らかにおかしいです。
Several people in the classroom nodded in agreement.
実際このマクスウェルさんの思いつきはその後100年以上にもわたって世界中の物理学者を悩ませたの。情報を操作すれば熱力学の第二法則を破れる。無からエネルギーも生み出せる。そんなことを認めちゃったら宇宙の法則がめちゃくちゃになってしまうわ。だったら悪魔なんて存在しないと誰もが思いたいところだけど、恐ろしいことに近年の物理学者たちはこの悪魔を実世界で再現してしまったの。2010年11月、中央大の教授がマクスウェルの悪魔を実世界で再現し、情報を微量のエネルギーに変換することに成功。2012年7月、ミュンヘン工科大のチームが加熱することなく水温を操作することに成功。2013年9月、ある兄弟生が独力で情報を電力に変換することに成功。
Back to back to back.
そう、いるはずもない悪魔は実在したのよ。
Anna grinned, a quite devilish smirk as if she were tricking her students.
でもじゃあ無からエネルギーを生み出せるってこと？宇宙の法則は破れちゃったんですか？実はもう永久期間も完成してるとか？
それは残念ながらノーなのよ。
No, 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 yo.
どういうこと？
つまりこのお話にはどこかに穴があるのよ。
A hole in the narrative. Nobody answered Anna's question, but as his mother was a famous physicist, Natsuhiko was reasonably good with physics himself, He pondered the problem in his own way and gave his opinion.
先生、ひょっとしてそれって無からエネルギーを生み出しているように見えるけど、
I was gonna say
実
something
は違
similar.
うんじゃないですか？
I mean, I'm a bit of a physicist
どうし
myself.
てそう思うの？
いや、その悪魔自身のことなんですけど、分子を観察したり、それを操作したりするのにエネルギーを使ってるんじゃ。
はい、正解です。
Anna smiled gleefully as she worked on the computer.
長い研究の末、情報を観察する、操作するっていうことにはエネルギーが必要なことが分かったの。正確な言い方ではありませんが、分かりやすく噛み砕くと、操作するために使うエネルギーは得られたエネルギーよりも大きいの。相対的に見ればエネルギーは失われている。無からエネルギーを生み出すことは
Another W for
やっぱり
universal
できないのよ。
physics and laws.
なるほど。悪魔も別にすごいことはやってなかったんですね。案外
Surprisingly
普通の
normal
人なん
guy.
だ。
そうね。でもこの悪魔を再現できたということは別の意味ではものすごいことなのよ。
So it's kind of clear that these lessons with Anna are gonna be like important to what's gonna happen somehow. Because right, the last one was about reality distortions and what you see isn't real, what you see isn't what other people see. This one, right, the creating energy out of nothing, but then you're not actually. It's a net loss of energy.
というと、
操作するのに大量のエネルギーが必要だとはいえ、情報がエネルギーに変換できるということは確かに証明できたのだもの。
Natsuhiko and Mashido gasped in union.
かつてアインシュタインは相対性理論の中でエネルギーと質量は等価であり変換できるということを示したわ。そして情報はエネルギーに変換できる。つまり情報は質量にも変換できるということにもなるの。わかるかしら？情報とは概念ではなく実存するものだったのよ。
情報が質量に変換できるってどういうことですか？
You know what? I've been sitting here, just like kind of listening along. Something just clicked in my head. You want to know how Yuri's interacting with people and with things through this? Boom! Mic drop. Thank you, game, for giving me my answer straight into my hands. Thank you, baby. Information can be converted into mass. We'll see if this means a physical substance. We'll see. Let's listen.
それまで形がない、存在しないと思われていたものが
Thank
実は
you,
存
Anna.
在するものだという
This is
可能
why
性が示唆され
I
たの。
love Anna, because she's so smart. It demonstrates the possibility that information, something once thought to lack a form and not actually exist on its own, could have an actual physical existence. So who's to say that the kid, the only kid that the fucking country has ever seen that has such a high aptitude for BC, but that coincidentally doesn't know how to use it, doesn't like it, because of this traumatic incident that happened so long ago. Like, come on, it's such a coincidence that this guy, and who also has a dead best friend that he's known, since he was a little kid and got super close to, and eventually basically became like a sister to him, died in a fire or in some kind of quote-unquote lab accident. Interesting. And then now conveniently that sister figure never wants to go outside. But then also, despite having this fear of going outside, she pops out of nowhere in the lab outside of their house without a fucking second thought and, no explanation. Come on, guys, come on.
例えば分子の分布状態はもちろん空間の広さ、時間の流れといったこの宇宙に存在するありとあらゆる情
The
報、
volume of space and the flow of time. Okay, well this is clearly speaking to Natsuhiko's like flashbacks and stuff, right? I mean, you want to talk about volume of space and flow of time? How about that for you?
それらの情報というものは目には見えるものじゃない。だけど確かに存在してエネルギーにも変換できる。
目に見えないものが存在するということは、まさか人間の思考なんかも？
察しがいいわね。その通りよ。あなたたちの意志も思考も思いも記
Oh,
憶も
come on.
全て
Your
は概念なん
thoughts,
かじゃないの。
intentions, feelings, and memories? Dude, you could not be feeding my fucking ego any more than you already have, and yet you're somehow finding a way to do it. Guys, come on. I mean, we may have a whole fucking cross country to go to finish this game, but I'm already 100 fucking percent certain. I'm 105% certain in my theory with a 5% margin of error. Okay.
つまりより端的にかつロマンチックに言うならば、魂は存在すると。
When Anna finished talking, the room filled with awestruck sighs. I see. Her explanation's easy to understand. It was a concept that was a little hard to accept, but the students all seemed to at least somewhat understand. Some wondered how exactly this related to BC, but that's exactly when Anna continued.
さて、情報がエネルギーとして存在することが分かった後、物理学の世界ではさまざまな歴史的発見がなされました。現代物理学の主流においては、情報は電気信号などに変換しなくても独立して存在しうると考えられるようになったの。さらには物質が分子などで構成されるように、情報を構成したり伝達したりするものがあるということも分かったのよ。
情報を構成したり伝達したり、時期とかデジタルデータとかですか？
普通に考えれば間違ってないけど、物理学的に見ると不正解よ。
じゃあ空気？声は空気を媒介に伝わるんですよね。
辺りに満ちているものではあるけど違うわね。
それじゃあ情報を構成する分子があるとか。
惜しいわ。でもそんなに大きなものではないの。
Mashida wasn't good at physics, so she had a hard time approaching the correct answer. Natsuhiko couldn't bear watching her anymore, so we lent a helping hand.
素粒子ですね。
そう、正解よ天川くん。
Anna smiled and changed the text on the screen.
素粒子とは物質を構成する最小の単位よ。目には見えるわけもない途方もなく小さな点。さまざまな種類があり、物質を構成したりエネルギーを媒介したりするもの。これらは宇宙に満ち満ちています。例えば電気や磁気を媒介するフォトン、あるいは重力を媒介するグラビトンなどが代表的ね。小さすぎて観測が難しく、未発見の素粒子も多いと言われているのだけど、今から16年前、情報を構成伝達する新種の素粒子が発見されたの。 BC 粒子。 BC の使用に関する素粒子の総称。これは生物の、とりわけ人間の精神活動を形作り、また伝達する素粒子なのよ。
Oops.
かつては情報を伝達するものは空気や電話回線やインターネット回線なのだと信じられていたのだけれど、それらは情報というものを疑似的に表していただけで、本当の意味の情報は全く別の形態で存在していたってわけね。この BC 粒子を媒介にあなたたちは BC を使っているのだけど、
The students silently took their God, again. The students silently shook their heads. Anna nodded as she continued.
では BC の使用時にどのようなことが実際に起こり、情報のやり取りがなされるのか説明するわね。 BC とは脳と脳の直接的コミュニケーションだということは前にも話したけど、これが物理的見地から見てどのような作用が起こっているのかというと、次のようになるわ。
Anna worked on a computer as she spoke, which caused the screen to display a figure of a person's head.
まず先ほど話した BC 粒子は我々の周囲に満ちていて、かつあらゆる物質を透過する性質を持っているの。当然皆さんの頭蓋骨も、さらにその中の
Well,
脳も
clearly not all matter, considering that the classroom is lined with the matter that blocks it.
そして脳で行われている精神活動、脳内を行き交う電気信号からなる思考の情報、それを周囲に伝播させる性質を持っています。通常の会話に例えるなら、空気を媒介に声が伝わるように素粒子を媒介に思考が伝わるっていう感じかしら。ただもちろん思考によって生まれる情報のエネルギーはごくごく小さなもの。脳から離れた BC 粒子は瞬く間にエネルギーを拡散し、思考の情報も消えてしまいます。普通なら他者に思考を伝えるなんてできっこありません。それを可能にできるのがあなたたちコミュニケーターなのよ。脳のこの部位を使ってね。人の脳のこの辺り、前頭前野と呼ばれる場所には BC レセプターという器官があります。この器官はかつては何に使われているのかよくわからない細胞器官だったのだけど、これが BC の送信受信を行っているということが近年になり解明されました。 BC レセプターの構造および成長性は生まれつき遺伝子によって定められています。それが適正度を決定づけ、どのくらい意識的に活用できるかということが能力レベルを決定づけるわけです。
I see. So, in other words, the BC receptor in my brain is apparently quite different from that of an ordinary person. That said, he could not understand at all how that would actually allow them to use BC. But just as if she'd seen through him, Anna continued.
では次にテレパシーを使用する時のプロセスを段階的に説明します。まず最初にテレパシーの使用者は声を送りたい相手の固有脳波形を知覚します。固有脳波形というのは BC レセプターに常に流れ続けている電流のパターンで、人それぞれ固有のものです。そのパターンもまた BC 粒子を媒介に周囲にもわずかに伝播します。誰でも脳が活動している限り、ほんのわずかな情報エネルギーが周囲にダダ漏れになっているの。普通は知覚できないような本当に小さなエネルギーだけど、コミュニケーターはそれを知覚できちゃいます。このパターンを知覚し利用することでテレパシーに指向性を与えることができるの。つまり電話に例えると相手の電話番号を知るようなものね。さて、固有脳波形を知覚したら今度はそれを強く意識します。すると自分の固有脳波形と相手の固有脳波形が BC 粒子に作用を及ぼし、離れたところにある2つの脳が BC 粒子を媒介に接続されます。電話に例えると相手と電話がつながった状態ってところかしら。あとは送信相手に伝えたいメッセージを強く強く強く念じると、コミュニケーターの脳内で BC レセプターが激しく活動を始めます。そして通常時はごくわずかな情報エネルギーが数千倍から数億倍にまで増幅されます。増幅されたエネルギーは BC 粒子を媒介にして相手の脳内の BC レセプターにまで届き、聴覚野に神経伝達物質を分泌させ、頭の中に声を響かせるのです。電話に例えれば電話相手に話しかけた状態ね。以上3ステップ。これがテレパシーの発現プロセスよ。
Just about everybody who had dealt with BC had heard at least a little about that process, but Sally kept nodding as she listened intently.
つまりコミュニケーターは脳内で情報エネルギーを生成できるということ。それは無から有を生み出しているように思える。
それがそうでもないのよね。実はコミュニケーターが BC を使うときは運動時と同様カロリーを消費しているのよ。情報エネルギーを生成するために体内の熱エネルギーを使ってるってわけ。
じゃあテレパシー使い続ければダイエットできるんですか？
そう考える人は多いけど、大抵は痩せる前に脳が疲れて集中力も落ち、テレパシー自体使えなくなっちゃうみたい。
残念。
まあ念じることで情報エネルギーを操作できるコミュニケーターたちはある意味マクスウェルの悪魔に近い存在かもしれない。だけど結局は無から有は生み出せないの。悪魔でさえ宇宙の法則に反することができないようにね。
なるほど、理解した。コミュニケーターも普通の人間の範疇だと。
Even Sally nodded in agreement with Anna's words.
もっともそういう体の仕組みや原理を全く知らなくてもテレパシーなどを使えるコミュニケーターは多いわ。人が呼吸をするとき肺や横隔膜の作用を理解してなくても自然と呼吸できるのと同じね。だけど実は失敗しやすいのがその前のプロセスなのよ。つまり対象者の固有脳波形を知覚しテレパシーに思考性を与えること。これが正しくできていないとテレパシーはダダ漏れになってしまう。周囲にいる人の誰もがそのメッセージを耳にしてしまうの。 BC を使えない先生が言うのもなんですけど、これってうるさいので好きじゃないわ。やっぱりスマートなテレパシーが好きよ。愛の告白も密談も筒抜けってのはテレパシーの意味がないもの。
If others can hear your confessions of love or other such private talk, it ruins the purpose of telepathy. We know who she's talking about, eh? Anna's remark reminded Nazuhiko of business as usual at school. How telepathy would fly about at random and how Anna would have to use the intercom to warn against it. True, it really is annoying. The moment that thought crossed Natsuhiko's mind, Anna fiddled with the computer screen once more.
とそこでエニアグラムの登場です。
Oh, that looks an awful lot like our thing. Can we... There we go. Yeah, that looks... Yeah, it's literally this. Okay. And with that, a diagram of a regular 9-pointed star appeared on the screen. It was a figure often seen in BC practice.
今さらエニアグラムって思うかもしれないけど、やっぱり初心は大事ですからね。今日はこれを使って練習をしてみましょう。
Sally looked at the figure quizzically and muttered.
エニアグラム？
あら、フランスではこの図形を使った BC 訓練法は浸透してないのかしら。
うん。
そう。じゃあいい機会ですから改めて説明するわね。皆さんもよく聞いて。知識を確かなものにするように。
Anna then began to explain the figure.
本来この図は別の用途で生まれたものなんだけど、 BC の訓練ではこれを固有脳波形を9種類に大別した図として用います。固有脳波形は人それぞれでもどれもこの9種からそうずれることはないわ。せいぜい個人差レベルの話。三宮さんもこのどれかに分類されるはずよ。
なるほど。
Sally nodded deeply at Anna's explanation.
つまりそれをひな形として送信相手の脳波形を知覚する。個人差については適宜誤差を修正するということだと。
I wish I could pull this up. Because it has the things on there. Like it has like, oh yeah, here's Solu, and then underneath it has a little like, I guess, waveform type.
さすがね、三宮さん。つまりエニアグラムは BC 初心者向けの脳波知覚ガイドってところよ。ちなみにこの固有脳波形はその人の個性に対応すると言われているの。これを知覚することはその相手を理解し心を通わせることの第一歩なのかも。なんて言うとこじつけっぽいかしら。
Anna smiled wryly before addressing the students.
というわけで皆さん、今日は特に思考性に気をつけながらテレパシーの練習をしましょう。それじゃ例によって2人1組になってね。
And with that, the students turned to their neighbors and began practicing. Natsuhiko was about to warm up with Mashiro, but
おっと、これじゃあサリュが余っちゃうな。
一人では練習できない。ならば寝ていよう。
ダメだよサリュ。
Mashiro turned her head and spoke to Anna.
先生、ここは三宮さんも含めて3人1組でいいですか？
もちろんよ。あ、そうだ。鳥羽さんはテレパシーはマスターしてるはずだから、天川くんたちの指導をしてくれる？
任せてください。
よかった。それじゃお願いするわね。
And with that, Anna started to look around the classroom. Mashiro smirked and turned to Natsuhiko and Salyu.
よし、それじゃあ始めよっか。
なんか張り切ってるな。指導って言ったって適当でいいんじゃないか。
何さ夏彦、教官に向けてその口の聞き方は。
教官？
As Natsuhiko spoke in confusion, Mashiro puffed out her chest in pride.
そう、私が貴様らの BC 教官を任命された鳥羽真白仙人軍曹である。これから口でクソ垂れる前と後にさーとつけろ。わかったかひよっこども。
Those were lines from a famous war movie, though she did try to tone down the language.
真っ白が急に怖くなった。
いいからさあイエスサーとか言っとけ。そうすりゃこいつも満足するから。
わかった。さあ、イエスさあ。
よろしい。それでは早速訓練を始める。
Mashiro faced Natsuhiko and Salyu as she spoke.
それでは最初は目の前の相手の脳波計を知覚してみろ。どんなひよっこコミュニケーターでも集中すれば必ずできる。やって。
さあイエスサー。
Natsuhiko played along for the time being as he focused on Salyu in front of him. This is the only part I'm good at. He shut his eyes and sharpened his senses. And eventually, Salyu's characteristic brain waveform flickered in the back of Natsuhiko's mind. I saw it. It's type 4. It was the waveform of artists and eccentrics. Hers was quite varied from the archetypal characteristic, but he somehow managed to perceive it correctly. Natsuhiko opened his eyes and spoke to Salyu.
知覚できたよ。サリュはタイプ4だ。
Salyu opened her eyes wide as Natsuhiko pointed at the enneagram.
そうなの？初めて知った。
サリュはどうだ？僕の脳波を知覚できた？
多分あれだと思う。
Salyu pointed to the upper part of the enneagram.
さすがサリュも早いな。そう、僕はタイプ7だ。
Natsuhiko didn't quite understand why it was his classification, but it was said to be the brain waveform of enthusiastic people. Well, I guess predicting personality with brainwaves is kind of like predicting it with blood types. That is, it's not accurate at all. As Natsuhiko pondered, Mashiro spoke with satisfaction.
さすがだな二人とも。よろしい。貴様らは今をもってひよっこを卒業した。
え？卒業早くないか？
いや、この喋り方疲れるからさ、普通に戻ろうかなって。
そうしてくれると助かる。
いやいや、失敬。
Mashiro laughed out loud before continuing.
それじゃあ次は実際にテレパシーを送信してみようか。テレパシーのコツは心から強く念じることだよ。思ってもいないことよりも心底思ってることの方がやりやすいかも。
なるほど。心底思ってることか。
As Natsuhiko pondered that trick, Salyu tugged on his sleeve.
夏彦、やってみて。
ああ、じゃあ早速。
But little did you know, he's already doing it. With Yuri, right in front of you. Natsuhiko concentrated to the best of his ability. I'm starving. Maybe the rice girl was too good with helping digestion. I hope class ends soon so we can have lunch already. He intended to send the message that he truly felt from the bottom of his heart. But no matter how desperately he concentrated, Salyu said nothing and her expression didn't change at all.
どう？僕のテレパシー届いた？
まったく。
そうか。やっぱりか。
He really was bad at BC. The telepathy he used 3 days ago was looking more and more like some sort of fluke.
焦らず交代で練習してみようよ。それじゃあ今度はサリュがやってみて。
了解した。
Salyu put her hand up to her temple. She looks serious. That was their first time seeing Salyu using BC. Natsuhiko watched in bated breath to see the extent of her ability.
お腹減った。
That's the voice he heard. But it wasn't information firing off in his brain, but her natural voice passing through her lips.
サリュー、声出てるよ、声。
そう。
Selyu calmly answered Mashiro's question.
もしかしてサリも BC 苦手なのか？
苦手。
Bad? Yes, essentially. Yeah, pretty
no.
much. So she's an individualist. There we are. Yeah, I mean, no harm in just keeping it all at max.
そうなのか。
The school naturally attracted students who wanted to become great communicators. People who were fully aware of how bad they were at BC, like Natsuhiko and Selyu, were a tiny minority. That alone was enough to make him feel genuine camaraderie.
やっぱり誰にでも弱点はあるものだな。
うるさい。
違う違う。
うるさい。
バカにしたわけじゃないよ。
うるさい。
むしろちょっとほっとしたっていうか。
I was about to say, I don't think we've ever seen Selyu communicate with anything than just fucking violence, so. Selyu looked on dubiously as Natsuhiko tried to gloss things over, and that's when Enna spoke up to them.
あら、三宮さん、BC は苦手だったかしら。
そうみたいですよ。
そう。でも三宮さんの適正度は D ランクだと聞いてるわ。
Aptitude was, in a sense, a communicator's talent or latent ability. Rank D aptitude was fifth from the top. It was the lowest aptitude among students at this school, but
練習次第でちゃんとテレパシーなども身につくはずだけど、どう？
実はテレパシーも使用困難。もともと BC が苦手な上に体調に左右される。
うん？今日は調子悪いのか？
そう。使えないときは全く使えない。特に生理中とかは。
Thank you, Selyu. We appreciated that.
え
Natsuhiko and the others were taken aback by her abrupt use of that word.
そう。まああまり無理はしないでね。
Anna forced a stiff smile and let them be.
あのね、サリュー。よくないよ、そういう話を男子の前でするの。
If I was there, I would beat up that stupid period. Doesn't stand a chance against me.
そうなの？わかった。自重する。
ああ、それがいい。
Natsuhiko once again began to think that she really was an odd girl.
どうやら二人とも大体同じレベルみたいだね。じゃあちょいとこの真っ白軍曹がお手本を披露しましょうか。
まあいいかもな、サリュのために。
お願いしたい。
オッケー。それじゃあ自分の訓練も兼ねていろんなテレパシーをやってみせてあげるよ。
Mashiro took out her parapsychology textbook as she spoke. There were several BC skill training methods written in there. For example, according to the text, the best shortcut to improving telepathy skill was to actually use that ability.
それじゃあテレパシー上達マニュアルパート15、抽象思考の送信。これは言語化できない思考を送る訓練だよ。
言語化できない思考？
例えば嬉しい感情とか悲しい思いとか言葉じゃ伝えにくい抽象的なメッセージを送るってこと。というわけで今から私いろんな感情をテレパシーで送ってみるよ。二人とも目つぶって受信に集中して。
はい。
はい。
Natsuhiko and Selyu closed their eyes, and eventually Mashiro's voice rang out in their heads.
はい。じゃあまず和むような感情から夏彦、サリュの順番で連続送信していくよ。
Then a gentle feeling welled up from the bottom of their hearts.
なんかほっとするな。
ほんわかしてきた。
でしょでしょ。ちなみに私は
This is generally how I always feel.
いつもこんな気分だよ。それじゃあ次は悲しい感情。
The moment Mashiro said that, the pit of Natsuhiko's heart was torn out.
これはなんだ。
この間お財布落とした
That's how I feel when I dropped my wallet the other day.
送ってる私も泣きそうだよ。はい、そんじゃあ気を取り直して。 お次は恋する気持ちを送っちゃうよ。
You can't see me, but I just did a little eyebrow raise at this one. You can't see it, but I'm doing it right now. Right after he heard those words, Natsuhiko felt his heart clench.
甘ったるくて切なく、しかし情熱的な。
これは真白自身の恋する気持ちなの？
のんのん、これは一昨日読んだ恋愛漫画を回想することで私の脳内に想起されたイメージです。
ってお前何読んだんだこれ。
ずいぶん大人っぽいという
A
か、
little erotic, too.
少しエロティックな
What
感じ
were
の。
you reading, Mashido? What were you reading?
秘密。まあサリにはまだ早い内容なのは間違いないね。
And with that, Mashido's telepathy performance came to a close.
とまあこんな塩梅だよ。どうだったかな二人とも。熟練者のテレパシーは。
とても不思議な感覚。故郷でこんな優れたコミュニケーターに会ったことはない。初めての体験だった。
ああ、テレパシーについてはますます上達したな。
鍛えてますから。まあこうして上達すればね、コミュニケーターにしかできないコミュニケーションが可能になるってわけだよ。
面白い。他にはどんなことができるの？
例えばそうだね、複雑な論理思考の送信とか。それじゃあちょっとテキストを見ながら円周率を送信します。
As I send you, thank you. I definitely needed you to send me the value of pi. As Mashido said this, a long string of numbers pounded Natsuhiko's brain.
3.1415926535
God damn!
2323
Holy shit!
233279532828。
うわ、これはなんか気持ち悪いな。
でもこれは普通の言葉でも伝えられることのように思える。
まあ口で説明するより多少時間が節約できるかなって程度だね。だけどこういう地道なトレーニングが一番効果的なんだってさ。
The truth was that outside of her training time with Natsuhiko, Mashido would work hard at this sort of practice. And as a result, her telepathy precision increased and she became capable of many different types of telepathy applications.
とにかく極めれば面白い能力だから二人ともやる気出して頑張ってみよう。まずは至近距離の親しい相手への言語送信からね。
さあイエスさ。
At Mashido's suggestion, the two of them began telepathy practice a little more seriously than usual. But in the end, before either Natsuhiko or Sayu could successfully send a single message, the first hour of class came to an end.
頑張ってみたけど、やはり難しい。
なかなか道のりは厳しいな。
まあまあじっくりやっていこうよ。
As they were having that conversation, Anna addressed the students.
皆さん、今の授業で気になるところやわからない点があったら質問を受け付けるわよ。 BC うんちくならいくらでも語ってあげるからね。
Oh, fuck. Vast talk of BC knowledge, huh? I usually ignore all that, but feeling just a little bit more open to BC now, Natsuhiko decided to ask a small question for once.
先生。
あら天川くん質問とは珍しいわね。何？
そういえばさっき近年になって BC の原理が続々解明されてきたってお話ししてましたけど、 BC 大発現の以前にもテレパシーとかって存在してたわけですよね。その頃はテレパシーとかってどういう風に捉えられてたんでしょうか？
なるほど。私が幼い頃のお話ね。そうね。まず人間が素粒子を媒介に情報を直接脳でやり取りするなんて予想もされてなかったわ。
でしょうね。情報の正体も分かってなかった時代の話だし。
でもひょっとしたら BC の存在自体はみんなおぼろげに感じ取っていたのかもしれないわよ。それまで人の雰囲気とかオーラと呼ばれていたもの、これは 固有脳波系のことを指していたのかもね。
へえ、そういう考え方もあるのか。
エナ、コミュニケーター以外がテレパシーなどを使った例は過去にはあるの？
Anna was taken aback by a student calling her by her first name, but she still answered in good humor.
いい質問ね、三宮さん。ごく少ないけれど状況によってはあり得るわ。例えばいわゆる虫の知らせ。人が亡くなった瞬間を離れた場所にいる親族がなぜか察するっていうあの現象。あれは生命の危機に瀕した人の脳機能が生存本能により一時的に高まり BC レセプターをも活動させ、テレパシーが発現して親族と通信する現象だという見方が強いの。いわば人生一度きり、最初で最後のテレパシーね。
なるほど、興味深い。
Mashiro then added even more to the conversation.
じゃあ先生、そういう昔はオカルトって思われてたことも BC の一種として説明できたりしちゃうんですか？
その通り。だから超心理学は面白いのよ。諸々の不思議な出来事を科学的に解明する学問でもあるからね。BC 粒子が発見されてからというもの、もはやあらゆるオカルト現象は科学の対象になったと言っても過言ではないわ。極端な話、幽霊もひょっとしたら BC の一種ではなんて考えさえあるのよ。
Anna, could you repeat that again for me?
BC 粒子が発見されてからというもの、もはやあらゆるオカルト現象は科学の対象になったと言っても過言ではないわ。
I see. Sorry, just one more time.
BC 粒子が発見されてからとい
It's
う
no
もの、
exaggeration to say that with the discovery of BC particles, every sort of occultic
科
phenomena
学
you
の
could
対
think
象になったと言
of.
って
Oh
も
wait, no,
過
that's
言
the
で
wrong
はない
one.
わ。
Wait, I'm making myself look like an idiot. Hold up.
幽霊が
Hold up. Anna, say that again.
極端な話、
Some people have been considering the possibility that
幽霊も
ghosts
ひょっとしたら BC の
just might be another type of BC. Well. What do you know? And another thing, Yure? Come on. Saying ghost in Japanese sounds so much like Yuri's name. Is that... Her name could have easily been Yuri. Y-U-R-I. Easily could have been Yuri. That's a very common name for like anime characters and just people in general, right? So why specifically Y-U-U-R-I? Now, I'm not Japanese, but I ain't never heard that name before. So, they're just spoon feeding it. They're spoon feeding it right now. But you know what? I predicted this shit before. I predicted it before. That 105% confidence is up to fucking
極端
110
な
right now.
話、幽霊もひょっとし
幽霊が
そうよ。さっき死に瀕した人はコミュニケーターじゃなくてもテレパシーを発現しうるって話をしたわよね。そしてテレパシーによって発生した BC のエネルギーは発生と同時に減衰し始めるけれどすぐゼロになるわけではないわ。つまり超強力なテレパシーは対象者がいようがいまいがしばらくその場にとどまりうる。するとどうなるかしら。
その人の死に場所に行くと生前の声が聞こえちゃうとか？
そうそう、恨めしやとかね。しかも BC なら感情も伝わるから恨めしいと思う気持ちも一緒に伝わったりして。
それは恐怖。
でもある意味では死んだ人の思いはこの世に残るってことですね。
ロマンチックねトバさん。でも実際その通りかもしれないわよ。魂や思考や記憶がエネルギーとして実在するならば、死者の思いが現世に残るのもむしろ当然のことだものね。
Anna and Mashino smiled at each other. Jeez, these two really like that sort of stuff, don't they? As Natsuhiko mulled over the content of their conversation, break time came to an end. Is this whole fucking day just gonna be the shit? And thus began the second hour of class. Anna explained the next topic to the students.
さて皆さん、次の時間で
Oh
は
my
エン
god,
パシーにつ
empathy
いて
now.
練習してみましょう。
Hold on, give me 5 minutes. You guys enjoy looking at Anna for a bit. This is me communicating to you from the other room. I'm not actually at my desk. But you know what's actually happening? I'm projecting myself via BC onto my desk as a physical entity and continuing the video. That's crazy, isn't
エン
it?
パシーは他人の心を
You
読
know
む
I'm
能
actually
力。
dead.
これこそ BC の真髄よね。と言ってもこのクラスにはまだエンパシーを使える人はいないわね。
After seeing the students meekly shake their heads, Anna continued.
確かにエンパシーはテレ
There's
パ
going to
シ
be a
ーよ
lot
り
of
数
Anna
段難しいで
continued
す。原理はテレパシーとそっくりなんだけど
audio
ね。
here. Anna tampered with the computer as she spoke, causing text to appear on the screen.
まずテレパシーと同じ要領で送信相手の固有脳波形を感知し、自分の脳と送信相手の脳を接続します。この接続時、送信相手もまたごくわずかな情報エネルギーを発しています。コミュニケーターか否かにかかわらず、思考によって自然発生するエネルギー、固有脳波形よりさらに微細で複雑なもの、それを熟練したコミュニケーターは感知できてしまうのです。そしてコミュニケーターはその感知した情報エネルギーを脳内で分析します。分析に成功すれば自らの聴覚野に錯覚が起き、脳内に相手の心の声が響きます。以上3ステップ、これがエンパシーの発現プロセスよ。
Upon hearing her explanation,
なるほど。でも言うだけなら簡単っぽいんですが。
one student spoke up first. The other students nodded in agreement.
そうね、実現が難しそうってのは私にもわかるわ。電話に例えるなら、電話相手が普通なら絶対聞き取れないような小さな声で喋っているようなものだもの。普通の会話でもそうね。人に話しかけるのはその気になればできるけど、人から話を聞き出すのは難しいものだし、
Anna smiled a little awkwardly as she continued.
でもいずれにせよ忘れてはいけないのは、エンパシーを使うにはもう一つ大切な原則があるってこと。それは対象者が心を開いていなければならないということよ。相手が心を開いていないのにエンパシーを使うと、心の声にはノイズがかかってしまいます。2つの脳が接続された時、送信相手の脳が本能的に危険を察知して思考を読ませまいというふうに働くのね。その自己防衛的機能がノイズという形になって現れるのです。だからエンパシーを使いたいときは、まず相手に心を読んでいいですよと思ってもらうことね。そうしなければ、仮にエンパシーが発動しても相手の心の声はまともに聞こえやしないわ。
なるほどですね。でもどうしてそんな防衛機能が人間の脳には備えられているんですか？
Upon hearing Mashiro's question, Anna grinned and replied.
わかりません。
Bruh.
あら、わからないって。
BC の研究は発展途上でね、諸説あるけど結論は出ていないのよ。例えば人が他者に対して不快感を覚えると脳内で思考が荒れて、それがノイズになるという説から、果ては大昔からコミュニケーターは存在していて、コミュニケーターではない人々が身を守るために得た機能だという説まで。いろんな説があるけれど、今のところは謎なの。とりあえずそういうものだと思ってた方がいいと思うわ。まあもしこの防衛本能がなかったら、エンパシーっていう能力は本当に危険視されていたでしょうけどね。
A faint shadow cast over Anna's face as she said this. That's when Salyu suddenly spoke up.
この学校にはエンパシーを使える生徒はいるの？
ええ、初等部から高等部まで数名ずつね。だからエンパシーがすごく難しい能力だとしても、決して夢物語というわけではないのよ。ちなみにエンパシーを使えるようになれば、能力レベルは無条件で4以上に認定されるからね。
The students got excited at those words. In this school, students with high BC ability levels were treated preferentially. Ability level 4 and 5 students in particular received special privileges such as tuition waivers and scholarships. They even received recommendations to major in parapsychology in top colleges. Furthermore, students who can use empathy gain the respect of other students with that feat alone. I'm sure at an ordinary school, being able to read minds would get you beat up and ostracized. But that was far from the case at Rokame Academy. Rokame Academy severely punished any instance of discrimination against empaths. Since the school's original intent was to provide communicators protection against discrimination, this rule was strictly enforced.
というわけで、皆さん、目標は大きく持ってね。もちろんテレパシーができない人はその練習をしてていいわ。それぞれ自分のレベルに合わせて訓練するのよ。それでは皆さん、隣の人と組んで実習開始。
And with Anna's energetic command, the students all began working at once. Mashiro looked around the noisy classroom and spoke confidently.
よーし、今度は私のトレーニングタイムだね。
マシロ、エンパシーの練習をするの？
うん、私テレパシーは使えてもエンパシーはさっぱりだからさ。天川博士から聞いてない？
そういえば聞いてた。2人の能力レベルについては、マシロは能力レベル3で、夏彦は能力レベル0だと。
母さん、そんな余計なことを吹き込んだのか。
Natsuhiko let out a humph. Ability level was a measurement of how much practical control one had over BC. In other words, it was a sort of measurement of one's worth. There were 6 levels in total from 0 to 5. Level 0 cannot use telepathy. Level 1 can use very short-range telepathy. Level 2 can use short-range telepathy. Level 3 can use long-range telepathy. Level 4 can use long-range telepathy and very short-range empathy. Level 5 can use very long-range telepathy and short-range empathy. The level divisions were roughly as shown above, omitting a few particulars. At ability level 3, Mashiro was a communicator capable of long-range telepathy. In other words, she was just one step away from being able to use empathy.
それじゃあ1時間目は2人に付き合ったんだから、この時間は私にこってり付き合ってもらうよ。
よし、いいだろう。
了解した。
最初は夏彦の心からだね。読ませてもらっていいかな？
いいよ。読めるものなら読んでみろ。
Once Natsuhiko gave his consent, Mashiro went right up into his face.
近すぎないか？
仕方ないでしょ。BC は対象者が近いほど使いやすいんだから。
Mashiro closed her eyes and said no more. Certainly enough, the energy of the BC particles used in BC transmissions would decrease proportionally to the distance between the Esper and the target. Naturally, since Mashiro was a beginner to telepathy, it would only make sense for her to get right up close to Natsuhiko. But this feels so awkward. Natsuhiko got uncomfortable as he followed Mashiro's lead and closed his eyes too.
夏彦、心開いてる？
Mashiro spoke from right in front of him. Natsuhiko whispered in reply.
開いてるよ。
そう？全然心の声が聞こえないんだけど。もっと心開いて。
そんなこと言ったってな。どうすりゃいいんだか。
難しく考えなくていいと思うよ。私に対し親密な気分でいればいいんだから。そしてこう集中して何か分かりやすい言葉を念じてみて。
わかった。
Natsuhiko drove out all the thoughts of embarrassment as he tried to focus. Really hungry. The second hour's really too long to bear. I'm hungry. So damn hungry. That moment, Natsuhiko noticed Mashiro's body twitch.
聞こえた。
何？
Natsuhiko opened his eyes in surprise. Staring right at him was Mashiro's overly confident face.
夏彦の心の声が魂の叫びが聞こえたよ。
Watch her get it completely wrong.
なんて聞こえたんだ？
真白ってほんと可愛いな。トレーニングのためとはいえ真白とこんなに接近できるなんて役得だぜって。
残念不正解。一文字も合ってない。
Natsuhiko stared coldly at Mashiro as she spouted off lines far detached from reality.
ひどいや夏彦。もう少し乗ってくれても。
だってお前、いつものことだろ。
It was almost a habit for Mashiro to screw around during empathy practice. Mashiro had rank B aptitude. With a value that high, it wouldn't be strange at all for her to have eventually gained the use of empathy. But she remained at ability level 3 for the past few years, and yet she never took practice seriously.
そんなんだから、いつまで経ってもエンパシーが身につかないんだよ。
能力レベル0の夏彦に言われたくないよ。なんだ、夏彦とはきっと相性が悪いんだい。それじゃあサリュー、練習に付き合ってくれる？
わかった。
Mashiro got close to Salyu and closed her eyes. Is Salyu opening her heart? Natsuhiko watched in bated breath. And eventually, Mashiro opened her eyes wide.
聞こえた、サリューの声が。お腹減ったって。
正解。
おい、真白。それはエンパシーを使わなくてもわかる。っていうか、さっき言ってたぞ。
何さ、文句が多いな、夏彦は。
そんな問題じゃなくてだな。
Natsuhiko and Mashiro's voices filled the BC room. They spent some more time practicing, but in the end, Mashiro didn't come up with any results at all. Eventually, Enna spoke up near the end of class.
鳥羽さん、エンパシーのコツ、少しは見えてきたかしら？
全然見えません。
Voices saying "same here" popped up all across the classroom.
気を落とすことはないわよ。超絶的に難しい技術だと私も思うもの。
どうすれば身につくんでしょうね。
そうね。先生はコミュニケーターじゃないから技術的なアドバイスはできそうにないのだけど、何でもとある研究者の発表によると BC の能力開発については当人の意思がかなり重要になるという話だわ。
意思？
そう。テレパシーの使用については他者に自分の気持ちを伝えたいと思う意思、エンパシーの使用については他者の気持ちを知りたいと思う意思。単純な精神論のようだけどこれが非常に大切らしいのよ。何しろ 脳で行うコミュニケーションですもの。そういう意思が重要になるのは無論のことよね。
ああ、わかる気がします。
Natsuhiko felt like he also understood. After all, if that were indeed the case, it'd only be obvious that someone as disinterested in BC as Natsuhiko would be unable to even use telepathy. But then he thought about the accident several days ago, and how he tried to warn Mashiro with all his heart to get away from the car. Maybe that's why I was only able to use telepathy that one time. And it continued as Natsuhiko pondered to himself.
いわば BC は意思を伝え合う技術であり、心を通わせるための能力とも言えるわ。誰かに本当に気持ちを伝えたくなった時、誰かの心を知りたいと思った時、あなたたちみんな程度の差はあれど適正度は優れているはずだもの。あとはきっと心の問題なの。だから希望を捨てず訓練に邁進してみてね。
Anna finished speaking right as the bell rang.
はい、それじゃ今日の実習は終わり。
Class ended and thus lunch break began. Natsuhiko left the classroom and made the arduous journey through the whirlpool of telepathy.
宗像さん、俺はようやく覚悟を決めました。いろいろ考えたんだけど、やっぱり会って直接話したいと思います。放課後屋上に来てくれますか？
そう、それでいいのよ。テレパシー通じてあんたの思いは十分伝わったから話すこともないかもしれないけど、それでもやっぱり直接会わなきゃね。私もこれだけ全校生徒に事の顛末知られたら
The whole school knows about his situation.
ないわ。逃げたりしないでちゃんと屋上に行ってあげる。
He's gonna run away, I guarantee it.
まあそれで OK するかどうかは別問題だけど、放課後楽しみにしてるわ。じゃあね。
はい。
Score.
おお、甘酸っぱいな。青春だな。俺らも野球なんてやってる場合じゃねえな。
しかし紅崎よ、どうやら俺たちには思考性テレパシーはまだ無理らしいな。
そうだな。
What do you want to do, Shin? You completely open
放
after
課後の
school.
時間がぽっかり空いちまったぞ。屋上で誰かが誰かに告白するみたいだぞ。冷やかしに行くか？お前このバカタレ、人の恋路を邪魔するなよ。冗談だよ。まあせっかくだし、その誰かが安心して告白できる手助けをしよう。やじ馬が集まらないよう警備するとかな。
He's got his own security team here.
そりゃいいな。でおい、なんで俺たちこんな話までテレパシーで話してるんだ？あ、まずいな。癖になっちまったようだ。
Hello everybody! エンジェル神谷とザ・コミュニケーターズです。宗像ちゃんと七志くんの劇場型恋愛、みんな固唾を飲んで見守っていることだろう。そこで二人の前途を祝福し、我が軽音部から一曲送らせてもらおうと思う。
The whole school is telepathically celebrating these two confessing.
それではお聴きください。Myself Yourself。
それお前らの曲じゃねえだろが。
たまにはオリジナルやりやがれ。
バンド名がダセえんだよ。
俺は良かれと思って。
Natsuhiko ignored the commotion in his head and muttered.
やれやれ、今日も無駄骨だったか。
同意。
まあまあ、日々の地道な修練がやがて。
そんなものかね。まあ最後の話はちょっと興味深かったけどさ。
When Natsuhiko shrugged his shoulders, Sayu tugged at his sleeve and implored him.
それより早く食事にしよう。昼休みは無限にはない。
そうだね。3人で一緒に浴場でご飯食べようか。
じゃあその前に購買に寄っていこう。
The three of them made their way. The three of them made their way. There we go. They stocked up on baked goods and started heading for the roof. Natsuhiko brought a katsu sandwich and yakisoba bread. Mashiro brought a sandwich, donut, waffle, and pudding. As for Salyu, she bought 7 varieties of bread in total.
サリュー、ずいぶん買ったね。
どれが美味しいのかわからなかったからいろいろ試してみようと思った。決して食欲に任せてのことではない味に対する探求心。
まあそういうことにしておこうか。
Mashiro and Natsuhiko looked at each other and smiled wryly. That's obviously not the case. She kept saying how hungry she was a while ago. Perhaps Salyu was ashamed of her own gluttony.
でも真白も人のことは言えない。そんな甘そうな食物ばかり大量に買って。
そうだよな。こいつも意外によく食べるんだ。ドーナツかワッフルかどっちかにしといた方が良かったんじゃないか。
いいのいいの。私は体質的に太らないようにできてんだから。
As they were having that conversation, they reached a turn in the hallway, when suddenly...
おっと
Hey! What are you doing, Jun? Mashiro ended up tumbling down. She apparently ran into a woman on the other side of the turn.
あったった。ありゃりゃ、大丈夫？
The woman that bumped into Mashiro reached out her hand.
ごめんごめん、よそ見しちゃってたよ。立てる？はい、平気です。こっちもよそ見してましたし。あれ？
Mashiro exclaimed in surprise as she got up.
もしかして、どこかで会ったっけ？
マシロ、知ってる人か？
いやほら、あの時の事故現場で。
Those words jogged Natsuhiko's memory.
あ、ひょっとして。
The rescue worker that responded to the traffic accident 3 days ago.
安心しなって、私たちが来たからにはね。
That's her. Said rescue worker raised her voice as if she too had just remembered.
ああ、あの事故の時通報してくれた子たちだね。覚えててくれたんですか？嬉しいな。嬉しいって？救助の様子見てて一発でファンになっちゃったんですよ。すごくかっこよかったです。そんないいもんじゃないよ。先月配属されたばっかりでね。
そうなんですか？
いやでもむしろすごいですよ。配属したてであんなあっという間の救出劇をやっちゃうなんて。
The worker blushed as Mashiro showered her with praise.
褒められるためにこの仕事してるわけじゃないけど、やっぱ嬉しいもんだね。
Seeing that smile gave Natsuhiko an impression. I see. Yes, he generally likes helping people out. He thought it made her a noble person, but it also made him feel like a commoner in comparison. But Mashiro, on the other hand, seemed to take a liking to her. She cheerfully introduced herself.
私、鳥羽真白って言います。こっちは友達の。
どうも、天下は夏彦です。
三宮ルイーズユイ。
ハーフなの？さすが噂の六名学園。国際的なんだね。
Oh, fuck. God damn it. By the way, I'm Jun Moribe. Call me Jun. Thank you, Jun Moribe.
はい、よろしくです、ジュンさん。
それにしても、この間はレスキュー隊が来てくれるとは思いませんでしたよ。
そういえば確かに。普通、もっと大掛かりな災害の時とかに出動するんじゃ。いやー、あの日はたまたま別件であの近くに出場かかっててさ、その帰りに連絡を受けて、あの現場に急行したんだ。出場から出場の連続でレスキューってのも楽じゃないね。
大変そうですね。
いやいや、好きな仕事だからどうってことはないよ。でもジュンさんはどうしてレスキュー隊に入ったんですか？女性でレスキュー隊員になるのってすっごく大変だと思うんですけど。
Jun pondered that question for a moment before answering.
こんなこと言ったら笑われそうだけど、私さ、ヒーローになりたかったんだよね。
ヒーロー？
Oh, it's from Mashiro. Never mind.
そう、子供の頃からの憧れでさ。
Natsuhiko found himself intrigued by her words. Someone's actually living my childhood dream? Natsuhiko himself had wished to be that sort of person at one point. And so did Mashiro.
わかります。私も子供の頃は大好きなこの街を守ろうと胸の中で誓ったりしました。 見どころあるよそりゃ。ここ卒業したら消防学校入るといいよ。
でも珍しいですね。ヒロインじゃなくてヒーローに憧れるなんて。
Hey, Natsuhiko. That's a little bit patriarchal, don't you think?
いやー、私ってば子供の頃からなんつうか男勝りでね、誰かに助けられるヒロインより誰かを助けるヒーローになりたいって思っててさ。で、ヒーローを目指すならやっぱレスキュー隊かなってさ。ヒーローの定義とかって難しいけど、人の命を救うってのは間違いなく正しいことだしね。はい、そう思います。命より大切な宝物なんてどこにもないですもんね。お、あんたいい子だね。よしよし。
Mashiro smiled as Jun patted her on the head. These two kind of seem like they're on the same wavelength. If nothing else, both Jun and Mashiro seemed to enjoy helping people. As Natsuhiko pondered the similarity, Jun continued.
まあシリウスに入るような人は多かれ少なかれそんな感じなんじゃないかな。実際うちの隊も給料安いわ仕事きついわなのになりたがる人は後を絶たないからね。そういえば他にも女性の方がいましたね。ああ、あれうちの副隊長ね。あの人はすごいよ。どんな危険な現状にも平然と飛び込んでいって完璧に任務をこなすパーフェクトウーマンなんだよ。おお、それもかっこいい。
副隊長さんがそうだったら、隊長さんはどんな人ですか？
ああ、隊長は
Jun made a slightly bitter face at that thought.
隊長さんは
まさか何か問題でも？
いや、とんでもない。あの人も超優秀なんだけど、ただ性格がちょっとクールすぎるっていうかドライっていうか。
Damn. Even Natsuhiko and Mashiro could tell she was struggling to find the right words. Does his personality clash with Jun's, maybe? As soon as he pondered that possibility, Jun looked at her watch and spoke up.
おっとやばい、もうこんな時間か。
まさかお急ぎでした？
実は今日は仕事できてるんだよ。防災指導のためにさ。そうだったんですか。お時間取らせてすみません。ああ、いいのいいの。こっちも話せて嬉しかったよ。まあ何かあったらすぐに呼んでね。ほんじゃね。
And with that, Jun waved her hand and left. Mashiro muttered as she watched her leave.
あー、かっこよかった。
Mashiro's face lit up in admiration. Natsuhiko reflected on the conversation Jun and Mashiro just had. There's nothing more valuable than the treasure of life, huh? Now that I think about it, I might have said something like that a long time ago. How long ago was the question? As if unlocked by the heat of the moment, another door in Natsuhiko's memories opened wide. And here we go with the flashback. After Mashiro and Natsuhiko decided to keep Sirius at the park, they would take care of him enthusiastically. When Yuri learned about the situation, she also worked hard to help out. In the end, Sirius didn't go hungry, which was a big relief to Natsuhiko. But that relief would not continue for long. One day, about a month after they started keeping Sirius, Yuri gave Natsuhiko and Mashiro an ominous warning.
聞いた？二人とも
何が？
近頃ね、保健所って人たちが野良犬狩りをしてるんだって。
野良犬狩り？
町の美化計画の一環で野良犬をみんな捕まえちゃおうって。
捕まったらどうなるの？
殺されちゃうって。
Natsuhiko and Mashiro's bodies shook at those words.
シリウス。
Natsuhiko and Mashiro ran through the park. Yuri stayed put since they told her it was dangerous.
シリウス！シリウス！
Mashiro shouted in every which way. She feared that perhaps he had already been taken away, but the very next moment, Sirius came flying out of the woods.
シリウス！
よかった。
Mashiro sighed in relief.
でもいつかは保健所に見つかっちゃうよな。
Even a child Natsuhiko's age could imagine that. The The stray dog roundup was happening all across the city, so no matter where he went, he'd be found eventually.
お母さんとかに言えば何とかしてくれるかな。
But they'd been keeping him in the park because nobody could take him in. Even if they had a collar on him or a doghouse, the adults would see Sirius as nothing more as a stray. But even so, they still couldn't just abandon him.
いや、マシロ。僕らでシリウスを助けよう。
Mashiro gulped as Natsuhiko said that.
そうしたいのは私も同じだけど。でも、どうすればいいの？
それを今から考えるんだよ。シリウスを見捨てるなんて絶対あっちゃいけないんだ。命より大切な宝物なんてどこにもないんだから。
That was another line Natsuhiko stole from a hero he was obsessed with at the time, but it seemed to have resonated in Mashiro's heart.
だよね。私たちがどうにかしないとシリウスが死んじゃうもんね。
その通りだ。
Natsuhiko and Mashiro nodded at each other and then looked at Sirius.
シリウス、必ず僕らが助けてやるからな。
Natsuhiko remembered the serious expression on Mashiro's face back then. It didn't seem like Mashiro changed one bit since those days. Mashiro's grown and become more feminine in some regards, but I guess she's still the same as she always was. She would abide by her own kindness at all cost. As long as her conscience told her to do so, she'd go through any danger at all. So perhaps it's only natural that she'd admire June so much for working hard and earnestly for that same goal even as an adult. As Natsuhiko reminisced, Salyu interrupted by tugging at his sleeve.
二人ともそろそろ行かない？昼休みが過ぎてゆく。ああ。
When he looked at his watch, Natsuhiko realized there were only 40 minutes left of lunch break.
ごめんごめん、お腹減ってたんだよね。
時期限界。
それじゃ屋上行こうか。
The three of them hurried up the stairs. Lunch break ended, and thus the first afternoon class began. It was a special lecture from a visiting guest. Not that guest lecturers were all that rare. Rokame Academy actively contacted outside research institutes and enterprises for industry academic cooperation. And the guest lecturer for today was someone Natsuhiko knew very well.
はじめまして、原子力生物学機構第6研究所の研究員浮田啓二です。
Indeed, Ukita was a staff member at Labo, just like Natsuhiko's mother. He was the guest lecturer today. Ukita seemed a little awkward and unaccustomed to giving lectures, but appeared to be in good health at least. Mashiro whispered gently into Natsuhiko's ear from the next seat.
ねえ、おじさんのあの事故の怪我、大したことなかったみたいだね。
Maybe they replaced him.
そうみたいだな。安心したよ。
That said, it was quite unfortunate that he had to fulfill an extra work duty like this right after an accident. Ukita himself seemed a little uneasy about Natsuhiko and Mashiro's glances as he began to strain himself to speak.
今日はですね、原子力科学についての講義をしに来ました。これはこの町の住人として知っておかねばならない知識ですね。
Nuclear power. The topic was even part of Rokame Academy's peculiar curriculum. But Natsuhiko was as bad at this subject as he was with BC. It's not like I can learn to like it. But Ukita came all the way out here for a guest lecture. So Natsuhiko thought that he might as well try to listen seriously for once today.
原子力科学というものを学ぶ上で、まず知らなくてはならないのが放射能の恐ろしさですね。もう半世紀近くも前になりますが、ロシアのチェルノブイリ原発で起きた事故の話は皆さんも聞いたことがあるでしょう。人類史上最大の人災。今でもあの事故はそのように呼ばれています。
Ukita spoke in a bitter voice.
あの事故の概要は、当時その発電所で使用されていた原子炉がメルトダウン、つまり炉心融解の後爆発し、10トンにも及ぶ放射性物質がまき散らされたというものです。これは広島型原爆の500倍の量に及び、それによる死者は膨大な数に上りました。 近隣の住民や事故処理に当たった消防士など3000人が死亡。そしてその後も増え続けました。最終的な死者数は今となっては分かりませんが、数十万人にも及ぶとさえ言われております。
Ukida's voice gradually intensified, filling the classroom with tension.
かくも多くの死者を生んだ原因はやはり放射性物質にあります。死の灰とも呼ばれるそれは爆発と火災により空に舞い上がって雨とともに降り注ぎました。これが実に恐ろしいのです。ただの爆発事故ではなく、悪影響が広範に広がるという点が、それを浴びた人々は重篤にして致命的な症状を発します。神経障害、脳機能障害、遺伝子異常、そしてがん。
Natsuhiko gulped as Ukida continued.
九段の原発のあった町はそれまで極めて豊かで先進的な都市だったのですが、一夜にして人の住めない土地となり、12万の住人が移住を余儀なくされました。汚染の影響は今もまだ続き、安全な土地に戻るまであと900年かかると言われています。
As Ukida continued, a solemn silence spread throughout the classroom.
さて、我がラボにも研究用の原子炉があります。万が一それがメルトダウンし、放射性物質が飛散したら、この町でも同様のことが起きる可能性
Good
が。
job, Ukida. Scare the kids. Those words sparked tension in the room, but Ukida soon continued.
と心配する人も多いでしょうが、それは絶対にありえません。そもそもチェルノブイリ原発は非常にずさんな運営体制が取られており、事故もそれによって起こったのです。しかしラボには不測の事態に対応するシステムが幾重にもわたり完備されています。
And with that, Ukida fiddled with the PC at hand, upon which the screen displayed an image of Labo.
我がラボにはあらゆる災害に対応するシステムが完備されています。事故やトラブルを防ぐため、原子炉はスーパーコンピューターにより常に監視・制御されており、さらに万が一そのスパコンがダウンした際にも、地上フロアの遠隔制御室から原子炉の緊急停止などがいつでも可能です。加えて3つの原子炉制御システムと3系統計60の予備電源が非常時の対応を保証。防火防災システムはもちろん、侵入者を防ぐ警備体制も万全。原子炉自体も地下にありますし、しかも原子炉のある区画は特に頑強に作られております。原子炉周辺で爆発が起ころうと、巨大地震が起きようと、飛行機が突っ込んでこようと崩れることはありません。つまりチェルノブイリの二の鉄を踏むことは絶対にありえないのです。
I thought the audio cut out. Zit! Tiny!
生徒の皆さん、どうかご安心ください。我がラボでは
Arigato,
事故など起きないようになっていますのでね。
That's very reassuring. Ukida looked around the classroom as he spoke. An air of relief filled the class, upon which Mashiro timidly raised a question.
浮田先生、それでも事故が起きたらどうなるんでしょう。
と申しますと、事故が起きたときはどう対応するのかということですか？
そうです。昔国内でも大きな事故があったと聞きますので。
なるほどですね。ではご説明します。
Ukida used the PC to display a different image on the screen.
まず昔と今では建屋の施工技術も安全基準も格段に高くなっております。ラボ内の壁、床などは無論、普段から放射性物質が漏れ出さないよう設計されていますが、万が一の事態が発生した際には自動的に放射能漏洩防止システムが作動。無数に設置された隔壁やゲートが閉鎖され、放射性物質の拡散を完全にシャットアウトします。さらに自動通報システムにより、直ちに所轄の消防署に通報が入り、消防士およびレスキュー隊が即座に出動し、事故処理と人命救助を行う決まりになっているのです。
レスキュー隊。
Mashiro's expression stiffened. She was probably thinking of June.
大丈夫なんですか？チェルノブイリの時には消防士さんが大勢亡くなったんでしょ？
当時は核に対する理解が足りず、装備も乏しかった時代ですからね。でも今は違いますよ。 我が市のレスキュー隊は NBC 災害に対する訓練も積んでおりますので。
NBC 災害って何ですか？
National Basketball Channel.
NBC とはニュークリア、バイオロジカル、ケミカル、核、細菌、そして化学物質による災害の総称です。我々のラボで災害が起きた場合は N、つまり核による災害ということになります。レスキュー隊の装備には強力な放射線を防ぐ防護服が配備されています。また少々の被爆状態であれば体内の放射性物質を無効化、体外に排出できる薬もありまして、これらの装備は我がラボで研究開発され、極めて高い救命性を実現しております。
Ukita continued with a considerable force behind his voice.
しかしこれらは全てあくまで保険です。我がラボはチェルノブイリなどの教訓を生かし、起きた事故に対応する方法以上に事故を起こさないよう予防することに全力を注いでいます。先に説明したあらゆる保険はおそらく使われることはありませんよ。永遠にね。
それなら安心かな。
After hearing all of that explanation, an expression of relief rose up on Mashiro's face.
すみません、変な質問して。
いえいえ、不安が取り除けたなら何よりです。
Ukita himself sighed seemingly in relief before he continued.
ともかく我がラボはそのような体制のもとに原子炉を運用し、さまざまな研究を行っています。例えば昨年から始めた研究の内容として、
Ukita began to talk about research conducted at Labo. Yeah, I guess I might as well just keep everybody up. But Natsuhiko was completely inattentive. He couldn't get his mind off the safety measures Ukita had talked about. They better have improved their safety measures. That's the thought that came to mind. And then he recalled what Jun had said.
まあ何かあったらすぐに呼んでね。ほんじゃね。
In the unlikely event an accident does occur, Jun will have to dispatch, huh? He hoped from the bottom of his heart that it would never come to that. Natsuhiko looked to the sky outside the window. The sky had been clear just a while ago, but dark clouds had covered it before he'd noticed. That's a little depressing. Natsuhiko shook off that feeling and refocused on Ukita's lecture. Eventually, the 2 hours of the special lecture, including a break, came to a smooth close.
それでは講義は終了です。生徒の
Jesus
皆さん、お
Christ, a
疲れ様でし
2-hour
た。
lecture. Fuck that, dude. And with that, Ukita left the classroom. As Natsuhiko stretched out wide, Mashiro spoke up.
ねえ夏彦、ちょっとおじさんに挨拶してこよう。
Alright, I do have to end it here. I normally like to try and get through the whole day, but I don't think we're going to be able to do that, unfortunately. Yeah, no, I don't have the time. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save here. Boom. How many more? Oh, we have a lot of save slots. We're good. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save here. Let's hop on back to the title screen. Okay, so unfortunately, we didn't really get to the point that I would have liked to get to with, Yuri spews out some fucking cryptic bullshit, like close scene, unfortunately. But I think really what we got from this, I kind of just covered before, which was that my theory is fucking correct and any other theories are not correct. No, I'm kidding. But no, dude, seriously, I'm actually becoming more and more convinced with this stuff that we're learning from Enna that my theory with Yuri being a ghost is actually fucking bang on. Like, come on, dude. You cannot tell me that it isn't. Man. So what was this? The 13th? And then, so we have... Well, we have to finish up this day. Then we have the 14th and 15th. And then I imagine we're probably going to have the 16th. We're going to have, like, the beginning of that day and how we actually, like, got into the facility and what the fuck, yada, yada, yada. That kind of thing. So, for once, not really too much to talk about at the end of this episode here. A lot of it is just world building, it seems like. Kind of building out the history of BC and its role in today's society, and then obviously the nuclear power plant and its role in today's society, and kind of setting up character relations and yada yada yada. So it was kind of this is kind of like a filler episode almost. Except for obviously we got a lot of very important stuff, but that's specifically to my own like theory here. So it's not really to the I wouldn't, well, maybe it is to the story as a whole depending on how it plays out, but yeah, thank you guys for watching this episode. That's not, I wouldn't say it's the most exciting episode we've had. But I think that in hopefully just a handful more, well, hopefully just like maybe 3 more episodes, because I mean, assuming that next episode we get through it, we finish this day, finish the next day, then we'll be on the 14th, then we finish up the 15th. So maybe like in the next 3-ish episodes, I'm assuming that by that, like this route is going to end basically wherever we pick up. So I don't think that we're going to get like super far into the story quite yet. And it's very possible that I would imagine this line ends probably around the time that Natsuhiko gets fucked up in the nuclear reactor, and or just sometime right before that. And then whatever other routes we have afterwards is going to kind of pick up then. So I don't know. I do feel like this is quote unquote coming to an end, this route here, before we kind of move on with the story as a whole, which I'm kind of anxious for. Wadase and his story was obviously a lot more action-packed, while this is definitely leaning into the suspense and mystery and yada, yada, yada. So, excuse me. But we'll just have to find out in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video and tell me in the comment section below what you'd like to see me play next. If you enjoyed this video or any other videos or series on my channel, then I highly recommend that you hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you'll be notified when a new one of those videos comes out. Anyways, that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.